And extremely handsome. Handsome people wait for no men.
You're kind of silhouetted because the light is behind you.
That's because I'm incredibly handsome.
Yeah, we didn't want to break the camera.
They have too close a look at my face. They turn to stone. That's what happens when you gaze upon the face of a god, right?
Exactly. All right, making sure this is all working properly. Play that again. Are you sure you don't want to change that?
Yeah, sure, if you want. I'm
gonna walk over.
Why don't you come,
to
do it for me here?
There.
I can't be trusted with a piece of electronic equipment that I've not messed with yet.
Stand right in front of the camera.
Hello.
All right. What do we want? How about this? No, that's not what I wanted.
No, not that. Definitely not. I need something. Don't give me a pad. Give me like a piano or an electric piano or something.
Okay, fine. You're so boring.
Well, that one sucks. Don't give me that one. That's worse. Are you just running me through the crappy ones? It's like this is my crappy playlist for when Dan shows up. Play Charlie Brown on this piece of crap. That'll work.
Wait, you like that one?
I like the first one. That's what I liked.
Well, go back to it.
I don't know how to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
This will work fine.
I'm not gonna show you at all.
This will be fine. Why is this going away?
This volume.
Yeah, it's volume. Where is it here?
For what? Oh, to change, yeah. Musicians, am I right?
I'll use that. That'll be fine.
Okay, play that a little bit more.
All right, sure.
Can we get a little louder?
Louder?
Yeah. Far right, far left knob as well.
Far left. Oh, right here.
One that's labeled volume.
Is that okay? Is that breaking up a little bit?
I think that's fine.
Okay. Can you hear it okay coming through here?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
It does crack a little bit, doesn't it?
Huh?
It does crack a little
It
bit.
does a little bit. I could turn it down and just turn it up on the mic, or on the amp.
Yeah, or just move the amp closer to the mic.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be easy to do.
Keyboard is... Yep, good job. He figured it out. All you can see is his back. But he's figuring it out.
I just avoided a disaster.
Yeah, that would have been bad.
All right, hang on. We're getting close.
That's better. I can work with that.
You hear that all right?
Yeah.
All right.
All right,
Okay.
All right, we ready to go?
I'm ready. You ready?
Yeah.
Is anybody watching us?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Anybody watching us, say hello.
Hello.
Not you.
I'm watching us. You know, for posterity.
I can't type.
I'm ready. I'm just messing around.
Okay.
Sorry.
Today, an old, lost Wagner opera that is not old, it's not lost, it's also not Wagner. On today's Retro Zoo Super Show.
Live from Kakariko Village.
They would like the theme because it's awesome. Unless you just don't want it.
I always skip it, man.
Do you?
Yeah, this is real slow to me because I always listen at 1.5 speed, you know?
Oh, God.
Check it. It sounds like a punk rock song. You know, check it, you know.
I've often wondered if people listen to the podcast at 1.5 speed because there's so many
I listen at 1.5, yeah.
in the background and stuff.
When I listen to, so I hear your beats like at a different speed than you're used to hearing the beats. I will slow it down whenever there's music. So like not, yeah. I'll slow it down whenever there's like video game music that you're like showing, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound like that. Hang on, let me slow it down. Okay, go back to normal speed.
Throughout the Retroverse.
And then for a second, it's at like 0.5 speed, and it's like, and you're like, man, this boss fight sucks.
The Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro.
All right, so if you
Zoo
stream
Super
this,
Show.
can they watch it again later? Is it up for like? Okay, that's cool. And is it like can they hear us now, or is it just?
Now here are your hosts,
okay.
Kai and
cussing.
Steven.
So I can't say any bad words.
Right.
Guts,
Farts.
poops. Heck.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Retro Zoo Super Show. I am one of your hosts, Kai, and as one of our favorite substitutes, mostly because he's the only one who comes in substitutes,
Heck yeah.
we have Dan Gielak with us. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
So most of the time when we have you along, we're talking about music.
Yep.
Because once again, we're going to be talking about a game that you have no idea about.
Yeah. I'm the worst musical expert you could have possibly found.
Oh, but first, and I didn't tell you we were going to do this
Okay.
because
Because you just didn't want to? All right, lay it
Why?
on me, man.
Why?
What's going on?
why? We and this has been out for a little bit, but I haven't mentioned it on the air. But you just recently finished Castlevania Netflix
Yes, I did.
Season 2.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't know if you remember this because you hadn't seen it at the time, but when we did the Symphony of the Night episodes,
Yes.
I mentioned it, and you hadn't seen it, and I said that, and this was season 1, and I said that I really liked it, but there were some parts to it that just seemed odd.
Yeah, sure.
The random cussing.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. I do remember, now that you mention it, I do remember it, there's a lot of profanity in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not something that I normally mind at all unless it's random.
There's an awful lot of language in it. I thought it was like almost funny how, I mean, it's kind of like Big Lebowski level language.
Yeah, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go into Big Lebowski because we will be here all day.
You're not wrong, man.
Okay, so now season 2 came out.
Yeah.
And I have to say, season 2 is 10 times better
It's so good.
than season 1.
It's so good.
Like, all the problems of season 1 are gone and replaced with awesome.
I mean, the language is still there. I mean, but
it's not random anymore.
It's toned down, and it's
at appropriate times.
Yeah, that's right. And it's more focused on the storyline. I mean, they've established, who the bad guys are and who the good guys are in the first, season. It takes a bunch of swipes at organized religion and, and by that point they've established it. So they moved on and they just got to storyline and good character. I mean, great character development.
And when you say they moved on,
Yeah.
like they abandoned the humans almost. I mean, not really, but but they turned their focus to actually the vampires and their army.
Yeah.
In season 2, and I was thoroughly impressed. They brought in a ton of new characters.
Yeah.
That first, mostly on the vampire side, that were just just excellent.
I gotta say, after watching it, I'm actually quite curious to go back and play Castlevania 3. And I've been meaning to take a look at Symphony of the Night for quite some time.
Yeah.
But like I particularly Castlevania 3, just because the old stuff, the really old stuff is what I was NES and Super Nintendo era, so I didn't get into any of like the PlayStation stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I think actually Symphony of the Night was my first one to own.
Oh really?
I got Castlevania 4 on SNES.
Yeah.
Later, I got it used.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
I've played through that. That's a great game.
Really good game.
It's funny, like, because that game came out and it was all about the graphics. And the funny thing is like, you'd expect, like, what we know about graphics now, you'd expect the graphics to not hold up. But I played it recently, like maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it actually was impressive. And I was like, this is really cool visually. Like, it was tasteful. Like, they didn't just like, hey, we've got like more ability. But, I mean, it's actually very tastefully done. It looks good. It's a good looking game.
I think in general, the SNES graphics, like, okay, I'll put it this way. Really good sprite-based, two-dimensional graphics hold up a lot better than early
polygons
stuff?
Like Star Fox.
Yeah,
entirely agree.
And it's like, and so like Symphony of the Night is just, in hindsight, I was so mad that PlayStation Magazine gave Symphony of the Night Game of the Year rather than Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, okay.
And in hindsight, it's so much of a better game.
You can see why. Yeah,
it really is. But a lot of it is the graphics, because Symphony of the Night, went with 2D, really fine 2D,
which seemed like a step back at the time.
Did.
But it's
and that was the argument I made. It's like, how are you going to give Game of the Year to a 2D game?
Yeah.
And then in hindsight, and it's like, and I've gotten over that. I got over that really quickly, actually.
Well, okay, yeah. The thing, I think it really boils down to this. It's not like who has the biggest, freshest, newest toy. It's like who does the best with what they're using. So you got a 2D game, but it's terrific. It's going to be better than a crappy thing where it's just like, oh, look we got all these 3D, gizmos.
Right.
It's a better made game. So. But that's not what we came here to talk about.
No, but I'm not done talking about it.
We'll keep talking about it. I can talk about Castlevania all day.
So, so the couple of things I wanted to bring up about Castlevania Season 2, and and we have a very young audience.
Yeah.
As you know, because your kids listen.
Yes, my kids listen religiously.
So your kids should not watch this show for a while.
Oh, are you talking about like the Netflix?
Yeah.
Oh, there's not a chance. There's not a chance.
But for those of you who are of age, I have to say, it's like, I was on the fence about Castlevania Season 1. I enjoyed it until the last episode, the fight with Alucard,
which was terrific.
It was fantastic.
Real good.
And I have to say the season ending fights in Season 2, I think, are better.
Well, okay, so like about that, I mean, the funny thing is about the last episode in Season 2 is a complete. How much spoiler are we going to give on this?
Well, if we say spoiler. This is a weird place we're in, because normally we're dealing with 20-year-old games, and now we're dealing with like a month-old show.
Okay, can I say this? Bit of a spoiler.
Yeah. Okay, if you don't want spoilers, fast forward.
Yeah.
A few minutes.
Okay, yeah, but like the last episode is entirely denouement.
Yeah.
Like there's not like the story arc ends in the second to last episode. Yeah. And that fight is terrific, but I gotta say, the show is good because of the acting, because of the characters, because of the character development, and the last fight scene is cool. And I gotta say, I'm not much for like violence, and I don't go for violence most of the time, but the violence in this show was awesome. It was just so like, it's sort of like Breaking Bad, in which it was like you take a long time to get there, but when it happens, it's like horribly, like stunningly violent.
Right.
And it's like, oh man, out of nowhere. Yeah. It was great. And the last fight scene was really terrific, but it was extra terrific. The reason it was good was because of the dialogue and because of the character development and because of how it ended. And it was not it wasn't a Dragon Ball Z ending where there's just like this massive powerful attack that's more powerful than we never expected. And no, it was like character actually ended the fight.
Yes, that was so interesting. And so we're going to go into major spoilers for just a second.
You can do that. This is not my podcast.
Okay, so major spoilers for just a second. So the battle between Sypha, Belmont, and Alucard versus Dracula turns into Alucard versus Dracula, the way it should be.
Yeah.
Father versus son.
Yeah.
And when in Alucard's accusation of you're committing just a massive suicide.
It's just the world's longest suicide note. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and you realize he's right.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness. And
no. I think that he realizes that he's right.
And that's a good point. I think you're right. Yeah.
I'm not sure how much Dracula knows about it beforehand. Like you realize that, I think he knows he's lost. Like meaning wandering, not like he's lost the war, but like he's meandering.
Yeah.
But I think he doesn't realize that he's lost. I don't think he realizes that that's what he's doing until the last few moments there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when that strikes at the heart, literally and figuratively, of Dracula.
Yeah.
And then it circles back around at the end of the last episode and smacks Alucard upside the head.
That's like, it's the most anticlimactic ending of it's the most, like, normally you end a season finale on some massive cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Some active thing that's pushing the plot forward, some unresolved point. But it's the opposite of that. I mean, he's just sitting there and it's 45 seconds of him crying.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's really well acted. It's really well done. It's just good. It's just really well made.
So since we ruined it for everybody,
good job,
people
Netflix.
are going to coming back. Yeah, and Netflix, and I think they are doing a season 3. They certainly set up enough plots to keep things going.
Oh, easily.
But I did love that the last episode was not about setting up plots, even though it did so.
That's true. Yeah. They weren't just buying more time as, like building up to, Justice League or building up to Avengers.
Right. Yeah. So I'm very interested in what they're going to do next, and to my understanding, they're the same producer's going to be doing a Devil May Cry series that is going to share the universe, which could be really good or really horrible. Which is always the case.
It is Netflix. They make some weird calls sometimes.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. So what we're here to do today, since you got me off track, there we go.
Okay. That's the only time I'm going to play it this time.
I don't think anyone believes you.
All right, now I'm done for real.
Okay. So we're going to be jumping back to Gabriel Knight, The Beast Within, the second Gabriel Knight game. So we covered this game a couple of episodes ago. You do not need to listen to this to kind of get the gist of this, but I could not help but actually, it's kind of a funny story when I did send you this thing. So in the game, and spoilers on this too, but it's a 20-year-old game, so live with it. So, all right. So in the past, Ludwig II has been turned into a vampire. Got vampires in the brain. Werewolf by this one character from the Gabriel Knight game, and he consults with his good buddy Richard Wagner, as one is apt to do when one is turned into a werewolf.
You go talk to Wagner.
You go talk to Wagner.
He's the foremost leading expert on these issues.
Why not? And they like construct a way to expose the werewolfishness of this character in an opera by specially constructing an opera house with like these flashing lights and the music that combines to like draw the beast out.
Oh, I see.
And then one of them died. I think Wagner dies,
Okay.
and his opera is hidden. And
Okay.
unknown. So of course they find this opera in the modern day
All right.
because now Gabriel Knight has been turned into a werewolf
As well, and so he
by
does-
the same werewolf,
Oh, Wagner's friend.
Wagner's friend. No,
Okay.
Wagner. I don't think Wagner knew they were werewolves. Ludwig's friend.
Okay.
And so they conspire that
Okay.
they're going to expose this guy by finding the lost opera,
Okay.
which is hidden in very, very obvious places. I gotta say, the keepers of all of the castles in Germany didn't search very well,
Ah, okay.
but they found the opera. They put on the opera, and they invite their werewolf
Yeah.
to
The main character guy, he shows up. and-
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And so part of the plot is that this lost Wagner opera pops up,
Yeah.
which is ambitious.
Yeah, it is. It's real ambitious.
Yes. And this part of the story, it's like this 10-minute cutscene.
It is. It's 10 minutes long.
Yeah, it's incredible.
No, it's amazing that they devoted this much time
know,
of
it's-
screenplay into
it's wild.
the game to it.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And so they do this, and they actually play 10 minutes of this opera.
Yeah.
To the climax where the werewolf
The transformation
is
to the
really-
werewolf, yeah.
is figuring out what happened, and Gabriel Knight is delirious, and he wanders on stage and turns into a werewolf too, because
Why not?
why not?
We're all doing it.
Why not?
All the cool kids are jumping off
Yeah.
a bridge, so I might as well too.
So since this is the podcast that specializes in video game music,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, let's send this to my good buddy Dan.
Yeah.
And have him analyze it. And my email was not real clear.
No, it was a text. Was it a text?
Was it a text?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a text. It was a text. Okay, so full disclosure, that entire backstory, I knew.
No, you haven't played the game. Or
No, I
anything.
have. Okay, here's what I knew until you just literally in this last 3 minutes gave me that backstory. What I knew was what you had told me, and you sent me the YouTube video of it so I could watch it and listen to it. And I did some analysis of it too, like a formal and a chordal analysis. So I didn't know like the backstory. What you sent was something to the effect of there is a lost Wagner opera in a video game. And here it is. Do you want to talk about this? And I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds amazing.
So 10 minutes later, I think you dropped everything. I clicked on this. 10 minutes later, you're like, I hate to tell you, man, this isn't Wagner.
Because it wasn't.
No, and no one thought it was.
Yeah, right. And okay. So then you texted. It's like, no. Hang on. Let me clarify. In the story, this is a lost Wagner opera.
Right.
And then I'm like, in the middle, I'm like at this massive like Google search, and I'm like on Wikipedia, and it's like, oh, so the composer of the music for the video game wrote this, but in the game, it's a lost. I'm like, okay, now I'm on board. Now we're cool. Now we're good. But that was really funny. It was great.
Gosh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
So but I still think it would be fun because I am, I'm a massive Wagner fan.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly, I think it's safe to say I'm more of a Wagner fan than you are.
I that's fair. Yeah, I'm
You
not
understand him better than me.
Yeah, just because of all the classes I've taken.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and that's why I wanted you along.
Right. I've always specialized in instrumental music, and especially when I was going through university, I was particularly interested in instrumental music. So vocal music, opera music was not something I've ever really dug much into.
Mm-hmm.
So I know about it, certainly. I mean, that's part of like getting a degree or two in music performance, but yeah.
Yeah, I went through, like in college, an absolute obsession with the ring cycle for a while.
Nice.
and it's like, and I got into the rest of Wagner because I couldn't afford a really good set of the ring because it's long.
I've got a couple on vinyl if you've got a record player.
I do not.
You do not?
No.
I've got a record player
like-
if you'd like a record player.
In all honesty, like, you know, the retro community is going to come and like with pitchforks and torches. to my
I have an
door.
extra. Actually, I've got an extra turntable if you want that too.
Oh wow.
I'll set you up, buddy. No
Yeah.
worries.
Well, so I got Tristan and Isolde,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and it's amazing.
It is.
And it's like, okay, at that point, I'm like, okay, I don't need to just look at Ring Cycle.
Yeah.
And I had like the highlights of the Ring set, but then I went to Parsifal and the Flying Dutchman,
Yeah.
and it's so good.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely love Wagner. And so when they did this, and I'll, not to give it away, but when they hit the first 4 chords, I was cringing. But after those 4 chords, it got a lot better.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and I think I like in our discussion after that, after we figured out like once we were on the same page, I'm like, this is actually pretty good music.
Yeah.
Like the way that they did it is good, and the way that they put it together was, you know, it wasn't incredibly authentic. So like an opera audience would wonder what was off kilter about it.
Yeah.
But there were so many elements of opera that were thrown into it that it made for an authentic experience, and they got the gist of it. I actually showed my wife the piece this evening, and she's like, you know, he really got to the heart of what it's like. And I mean that visually and audibly. Like, it's like watching an opera. The way that they're acting, the way that they're standing, the way that they're singing. There's a lot in there that is truly authentic. So
Yeah, and I brought up, you know, a couple episodes ago when we covered the game.
yeah.
The production quality of the game is very high. It's very well done, especially for the time when, I mean, you know, it's like now it's like, okay, yeah, we get Kiefer Sutherland to do voice acting for you know, for video games.
Right.
We didn't then.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a different game.
But so like when Gabriel Knight 1, you know, was pulling in such big names, and then Gabriel Knight 2 came out, and it was full motion video, which is not known for its quality.
Right.
And it was good, and the acting was good, and then this scene comes about, and it's very well produced.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so okay, so we're actually gonna play the entire segment here.
okay, let's do it.
And then we're going to jump to a commercial break and then come back and talk about this and Wagner a little bit. So here we go.
Die Nacht ist der Meister der finsteren Grün. Kalt bis ins Mark die Farbe der Sünde. An das Leuchten der Sonne, du reichst nicht heran. Doch wo du regierst, der Tag nicht bricht an. Das Reich des Todes, das ist die
Oh, the music's going. So for those watching, we're just going to try to give you the video as well,
Oh, okay.
but we're not going to be able to.
Gotcha. Well, everybody, enjoy this 10-minute opera. Who says?
Judoon, J-O-O-O.
Oh, Jazz Jadoon. Hey, man.
Love how you're doing that right away.
I know who that is.
He doesn't have the visual of the thing. I have
Okay,
control.
yeah. Sorry. You can stare at us. We're incredibly handsome.
I gotta say, I'm pretty with the beard.
It's a good look for you, man. Looks really good. Is it itchy?
No, it's not bad.
Like whenever I grow a beard, like it's super itchy. Like it like hashes up my face. This is the rest of the team right here.
Der Mond kann euch nicht hören.
Does he act elsewhere? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
The guy with the little.
Yeah. I know.
Euch alles geben.
You just like his facial hair.
I he's doing well with the acting.
I think, I mean, and we'll get to this when we talk about it, but they hired legit opera singers. Like, not, okay, like, I'm in Hollywood and I'm just doing this as a side project. Like, these people are trained opera. Although there is
part right there.
It is. I mean, that's actually, I like the Richard Steve. It's probably one of my favorite parts. Well, that was, which is the thing. This is like the chorus scene. I'll have to find a name for it. I'm sure there's a name for the specific type of tune.
And my knowledge of opera does not go very far past Wagner, but the song seems very popular.
Yeah.
Es ist eine Freude, wie sie spielen, nur für euch und immerfort. Seht nur den Dicken und auch den Dummen dort. Es ist eine Freude. Der Dumme, ich hab ihn nie zuvor gesehen.
Ihr zu ihrem Vorteil, noch niemals lachte ich mehr.
That's my favorite part. It happens twice.
Bekannt aus, aber nicht so fröhlich.
Ihr habt keinen Sinn für Humor.
Yeah.
Wenn ihr so denkt.
There are elements there. It fits. Yeah. There are parts in here that, like, they get the gist. They get the environment of opera. They get the feel of it. If you watch an opera, you're going to see and hear things that are closely approximated by what we're seeing right now. And it's 10 minutes of a video game. They literally devoted 10 minutes of it. And somebody wrote this and scored it and acted it. She's real attitude here. Sorry, that's like the one part I'm like, no.
Ihr seid doch kein Mastkalb, spielt nicht den Märtyrer. Laut.
Oh, really? Retake?
In 2 takes.
Just gotta knock it out. Yeah.
And they were just flying through it.
Es ist eine Freude.
Like the playthrough of it was. Gosh, how long was it? In the tens of hours.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's all full motion video.
Man. So how did it work? Like, what were you doing as a player?
Es ist mein
Oh, sure.
So like
Sort of like the way Phantasmagoria.
it's
Yeah.
a much higher quality.
Later, right? I mean, it was like a later one. Okay.
Sie fangen den Dummen.
Euer Witz ist so stumpf, wie eure Schwerter Schmied.
Okay. Oh no. It's almost over, people. You're doing a good job, everybody. You're hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. We're all hanging in there.
Yep. Let me change this while we're in here. Help with the quality a little bit. I wish I could show it, but I couldn't understand why they would not want me to stream.
Yeah,
YouTube.
it's a separate, it's a competitor.
Well, that and it's copyrighted. Mostly copyrighted too.
Oh, sure. See how people get touchy. This is just a tension.
Das ist nicht Covid,
Does it well?
wartet so
It does. It's good. I didn't get a chance to like go through and like pull that one apart. Like I've got a couple of sections and I look in depth at a few.
Right now, the evil werewolf, not vampire, almost said vampire again. Tugging at the collar. What's going on in here?
Is he a bad guy? Is he a bad guy? Yeah. This is very Hamlet, right? Plays the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Cool. They did. Oh, sure.
Ich bin außer mir!
Morgen werden
Wolf!
He's like,
And we are back. You've now heard the entirety of the Lost Wagner opera.
that's right.
It's a little bit shorter than
Most Wagner operas.
most Wagner operas, which is like, when you're buying tickets to a Wagner opera, they're like, bring a sleeping bag.
Yeah, right.
Be sure to take a week off.
Ready for 7 hours of Wagner.
It's like, how long is this next one that you've written? Well, about 3 days. Actually, 4, because there's a whole prelude that takes an entire day. Okay, so kind of as a piece,
Yeah.
We're we're gonna go into more actual Wagner here in a minute. But
Sure.
as an actual piece, what got me rolling my eyes at the beginning was that it was so dull.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
the first 8 measures were so dull.
Yeah.
And then he shifted and started doing some interesting stuff. But as 10 minutes of music, it's really enjoyable.
Yeah. So he splits it up, and there are maybe 4 or 5 separate tunes inside this. So the first thing that you get is, and this is like one of the ways in which he does really approximate, traditional opera. He starts with an aria, which is just a singer, and I don't know the German, so I'm just going to assume that it's typical. Why don't I know the
I
German?
thought you were going to translate all of it.
No, I'm not doing that. Yeah, I could make some stuff up if you want.
Sure.
She's like, I don't know. I went to the store and bought some tomatoes. And she's talking about tomatoes for a while. No. So like typically in an aria, the plot is not moved forward.
Yeah.
It's just they're sitting there talking about their feelings, more or less. More or less. This is super simplifying, but it's like it's the moment, and it's an expression of a certain moment, and that's an aria. And so she's singing by herself, and then it goes into what you'd call a recitative, which is more storyline driven, and so it's more speech like, and you do some talking, and in this case, it's the two of them talking. And so that's like a separate number. Like think of that as like a separate track on the CD. And then the third thing that happens is this dance scene with all the, the pantomimers and the jugglers and all that going on. And then that sort of gradually builds into this chaotic crescendo that goes towards the end.
And story-wise, from the opera itself, because they do explain the story of the opera.
Okay.
That it is an opera about a werewolf.
Perfect.
And so that's the moment where the werewolf in the opera itself is kind of getting stir crazy and transforming.
Yeah.
And the audience can tell what's happening, and it's like, oh no, that's not going to be good.
Yeah.
But that's also in the game.
Yeah.
Is also where Wagner, being the genius that he was, figured out the harmonic resonance that would transform people into werewolves before your very eyes.
Now that's hilarious, but just if you could suspend disbelief for just a second, I want to tie that into something in real life that Wagner did. There's a concept that he coined. The term is Gesamtkunstwerk, and Gesamtkunstwerk is a big fancy German word that basically means the totality of the musical or concert-going experience. And so behind this concept was the idea that the genius behind, which of course was Wagner, the genius behind this work would be taking care of everything, and in one complete vision would identify what the costumes were going to be, what the music was going to be, what the lighting was going to be, the text. So he would use his own libretto and that sort of thing. He was the guy that decided that to watch a show, we would dim the lights in the audience and turn the lights on stage.
Oh, wow.
Which is what we do in movies, right?
Right.
We turn the lights down in the audience and we put the lights up on stage. That was his idea. Yeah. Before that did not happen.
And that is, I mean, in opera, that is really, really weird.
Yeah.
Like Mozart did not write his own librettos.
Correct.
Yeah. And so him taking control like that, I mean, he's
really taken over everything. And so
he's
the idea,
the weird Stanley Kubrick of the day.
Yes. Precisely. And so the idea that if you were going to pick one composer who could manipulate all of the elements in the environment to change, a latent werewolf into his wolf state,
yes,
it was going to be Wagner. It wasn't going to be Puccini.
Right.
It wasn't going to be Mozart. It was going to be Wagner, because Wagner had a handle on all of the environment, the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's really where the strength of Jane Jensen's writing comes through.
That's a good idea.
This game is exceedingly well researched.
Yeah.
And so Wagner is the only one, because when you're talking about in the game, you've got to position the chandeliers right, because that's all in Wagner's head on how this is going to work, and the flashing lights and stuff.
Gesamtkunstwerk. I mean, it's all back to that one actual concept. Yeah. And this is in music theory classes and music history classes. As a music major in college, you learn this term and you learn this about Wagner. It's a very clear concept in his life's work. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go off into.
He's the dude.
He's gonna go. I'm gonna go off into the little Wagner fandom right now.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. So, one thing that you said to me, when you were looking at this, is that, it was. I think you said that it was operatic, but not opera.
Yeah.
And so, from my point of view, being a Wagner fan, and not a lot of other opera.
Okay.
I'll listen to some Mozart.
Yeah.
And stuff here and there, but I'm really a Wagner fan.
Sure.
It's like, the stuff I notice is that they are like 4 distinct tunes, where Wagner would really more connect things and flow things together, and that's like even the difference between like a Mozart opera and Wagner is like Mozart. You'll sing a song and you'll talk for a while.
Yeah.
And when you go see a Wagner opera, you are listening to 27 straight hours of music.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Previous stuff was clear, delineated sections, starts and stops. This aria is now over, and here's this wretched, and then, recit, and then this is the new aria, and it's start and stop. But Wagner has this endless melody thing going on. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing about the way that Wagner writes. It's this, he never, as the music theory term is, he never cadences. He never, finalizes something and plays like an active, he He never finishes a thought, like absolutely lands it solid at the end. Right. Until the massive cumulative effect of those 27 hours, and then he gives you a final, like, you know, climactic end. But it's this continually flowing melody. He's very horizontal in the way that he writes music. It's melody lines on top of melody lines, and it just keeps going. So, so like, getting back to what I was saying about like it being operatic but not opera. I mean, there's a few things in here that are very authentic. I got to say, the first thing is the singing.
Yeah, singing's great.
They chose great singers. I don't know how they auditioned or pulled people in, but these are people that are trained and very, very good. It sounds great. And they're singing in German, which, I mean, a lot of opera is written in German. I mean, there's a lot of Italian opera, there's a lot of German opera, but the idea that it's in this original language is going to add credence to what they're doing. And then they're using traditional forms. They're using the aria at the beginning. They're using this sort of dance scene with this musical interlude that happens in lots of operas towards the end.
Yeah.
And okay, so this is really geeky, but the recit that happens there's two types of recit, and I've got to give kudos to a friend of mine, Andrea Mutt, who is the repetiteur for Opera in the Heights. That means that she plays piano and coaches the singers as they're working on the opera.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a great job. She works with the singers and she plays like the orchestra parts, and then she'll help them with pronunciation and things like that. But she was pointing out to me that there's two different types of recits. There's what's called recit secco, and this is in older Italian opera. Part of the trouble here is that, like, when you say opera, you're actually dealing with a whole bunch of subgenres.
Sure. Yeah.
So, like, if you were to say pop music, I mean, you got dance pop, you got, like, punk rock, you got, Nashville country. Mm-hmm. And to us, I mean, we'd be able to tell the difference between all of those.
Sure, yeah.
But, if you're just coming into opera, it's kind of hard to tell, because it's all opera. Anyway, so what's called a recitative secco. Secco means dry. And basically it would be something like the piano would play something at the beginning. Honey, I'm home. Oh, it's nice to see you again. Did everything go well at the office? And it would be like this back and forth between me. I would sing something, and then the orchestra would sort of like accompany it.
Right, yeah.
And then there's a different type, which is called recitativo accompagnato, which is, again, like an Italian style, a later Italian style, which is during this thing where the lady and the man are speaking to each other, singing to each other. The storyline is being advanced, and there's this accompaniment that goes on, and there's a steady pulse behind it, but the singing is kind of free. It's very speech-like. There's still, obviously, this is a talking part, and we're moving the storyline forward. And that's legit what happens in this. Like, that's actually what they do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the composer was aware that he was, like, emulating a very particular genre at this point, but that's actually what he did, like, dead on, which is really super cool.
And I was telling you earlier that's not my favorite musically.
Yeah,
that's not my favorite part.
It's also not designed to be.
Well, no, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the part of it where I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty close.
It sounds like an opera.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
And the little things that they do, like if you watch the video, you see them, they turn out and they sing, and they're obviously talking to each other, but their faces are pointed towards the audience, which is exactly what you'd see if you'd go to an opera. Like, these people are opera singers. Like, that's their day job, is singing operas on stage. So they're doing it the way that it is done. So that's good. The stage, just direction of it is right. The singing is right. The textures are right. So, and just generally the form, the gist, the environment that he's got. He's hit the heart of what it's gonna feel like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now, as far as things that are not quite right, the way that he writes, the way that the actual composer writes, is much more vertical than horizontal. And by that, what I mean is that when he writes, like, the very first thing that he does is he'll play a chord at the beginning of the first measure, and then there will be, the singer will sing, and then at the beginning of the next measure you get another chord, and then at the next measure you get another chord, and then you get another chord, and then it repeats itself. Right. So for every measure there's a chord. Wagner would never write in this way, because he'd be thinking more in terms of the melodies they're writing. So instead of him thinking block chord, that is played at the same time, like I just played on piano. He would be playing all these little melodies that would be meandering through things. They would happen to make chords as they move from pitch to pitch.
Yeah.
But he's not thinking vertically as much as he's writing horizontally. So in that, it's he's basically writing like a video game composer does. But he says, all right, I'm going to use the same format that I usually write, and I'm going to overlay it with all the marks of operatic music. And so the harmonies that he uses are pretty clever. The instrumentation that he uses is pretty authentic. So he's got the opera singers and he's got the orchestral background. And so he's using an imitative style. And it's sort of like, and I think as you know, we talked about this earlier, like it's similar to the popera thing that happened, you know, with Josh Groban and Andrea Bocelli and that sort of thing, which was basically pop music being sung with an operatic, like you got an orchestra in the background,
right, yeah.
and that sort of thing. I would say that this is similar to that in that it's the same structure. The chords are written like a pop song, even though there's an orchestra behind it and you've got operatic singers singing it. But I would say it's actually more authentic than popera is because the chords that the composer chooses are more, I'll use the term, chromatic than diatonic, music theory terms. Basically, he's using more expressive and inventive chords than you see in Josh Groban's music, which are more conservative. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I mentioned one of the things that, you know, just really stood out to me as being not Wagner.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and I mean, if you asked me to compose something that sounded like Wagner's last opera,
Oh, gracious.
it would take me a year of study
Aye.
just to understand his last opera.
Yeah.
I mean, by that time in his life, and so Parsifal is his last opera. And before that, I think immediately before that, like maybe a few years before that, we had the last two chapters of the Ring Cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time in his life, you know, he wasn't really interested in the whole, 1-4-5 minor 6 thing.
Right.
You know, he was
getting
doing
out there.
some
Yeah.
pretty complex
Yeah.
stuff. So I actually wanted to play a couple of Wagner pieces, and one of them is an aria from his last opera, Parsifal.
From Parsifal.
And we're going to just listen to a little bit of it. And you know, one thing that stands out is the movement of the instruments, you know, behind there.
Yeah.
And so
Let's do it.
here's where I make Yalric mad at me when I try to pronounce something in German.
Okay, let's do it.
Am fortis die Wunde.
That sounds correct. I don't speak German.
No, we're not going to listen to the whole thing of this, but...
Die Wunde, sie brennt mir zur Seite. Furchtbare Glaube, aus dem Herzen schweigt sie auf.
Okay, we don't...
Yeah, but
We
you
had
can
time
hear
to
the
listen to the
difference
whole thing.
immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sheer complexity of that.
Yeah, I mean, like, the trouble here is, like, they probably just handed this to the composer and said,
yeah.
here, you're going to write Wagner's Missing Last Opera. And he's like, oh, good. Because that's like sort of like writing, like, okay, this is Beethoven's Missing Symphony, or, I don't know, this missing Rush album from like 1985 that was like the best thing that they ever recorded, but the tape got lost. And
Also, it turns people into werewolves. Which,
Yeah,
which,
right.
Which, if Rush could pull that off, they would totally do it.
I'm fairly certain they've tried multiple times. I mean, the thing is, you're taking somebody who is the best opera composer ever, arguably, you know? But like, seriously, like you talk to opera fans and like, who's the best at opera? I mean, they'll, you know, somebody will say Mozart or Puccini or Strauss, but Wagner, I mean, give me a break.
He's always going to be up there.
Right, absolutely. I mean, clearly, but like, and he took the art to a new height. Like, clearly one of the high points historically. And they just said to our poor composer, hey, man, I need you to write 10 minutes of something that sounds like Wagner's missing last opus.
Right.
And he's like, oh, great. Let me just take this home and rattle it off tonight.
Yeah.
You know?
And he probably is like, so what do you need? Like, you know, like 30 seconds, 40 seconds? Go ahead and take 10 minutes of it.
10 minutes. Yeah, it's kind of an impossible task. Like even if
yeah.
you were to hand this to like some of the most established composers that are working today, I mean, they'd have a heck of a time trying to knock this out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so now for that, he did a great job.
Right,
he did a wonderful job.
Right.
You know? So, can I explain a little bit about the chromatic versus diatonic thing?
Yeah. Please,
Okay.
please do.
So, getting into music theory.
I mean, no.
Nerd. You mean no? Okay.
No, go for it.
I'm done. Yeah. All right. So, so the way that this works, when you use the words chromatic and diatonic.
Play the lick, Dan.
Yeah, there it is. All right,
No
so-
one in my audience is going to get that except me, and I'm really just here to entertain myself. So
Fair enough. All right. So this is for those of you who are, this is music theory 101. So like when the term diatonic comes up, what diatonic means is that it fits within a key. So if I play, F major, that's something everybody recognizes. But if I were going to play an F chromatic scale, that's literally all the notes possible from one F to another F. So if I'm going to play chords based on an F major scale, I'll use the first chord in the F major scale, the third, and the fifth. And then if I walk up, oops, there we go. Wrong note. So, but what's happening is I'm picking notes that are from the F major scale. Now, if I move chromatically, what happens is instead of this, what I get is this. You hear the difference? I mean, it's a very different sound because I'm not staying within the key. And so what happens is that Wagner, at this point in his life, does not care much about what the key was or used to be. And he's like, I do what I want.
Yeah.
And
I'm Richard Wagner.
yeah, quote, Richard Wagner. Like seriously, he was more interested in moving chromatically and just having this freedom to go anywhere he wanted and make those sounds sound pleasant and cool. And that's what gives him the Wagner sound. Now, our composer is working mostly diatonically. He's staying within a key. Now, with that, he is changing keys as well. And he's changing keys pretty quickly and in some pretty amazing ways. Keys that aren't really related to each other. And so it's surprising sounding, which gives it this operatic feel.
Right.
So he's working within what he's comfortable with, but he's also stretching so that it fits within the confines of what you'd consider to be an operatic sound. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. So I wanted to do one more thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play my favorite Wagner piece.
Okay.
And this is the piece that actually got me into Wagner.
Ride of the
Because-
Valkyries?
What?
Is it Ride of the Valkyries?
No.
Oh, that's a good one, though.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the themes. Okay, so if you've seen the movie Excalibur, the Excalibur leans mostly on the Carmina Burana.
Yeah, the Orff piece?
As for their musical themes.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
But they take one piece from Wagner and weave it into the story a lot. And so I knew it because of this, because Excalibur is one of my favorite all-time films.
Cool.
And it is the funeral march for
Gotterdammerung.
Demerung.
You got it.
Gotterdammerung. I'm going
Words
to
are
edit
hard.
that later to make me look smart. You know I'm going to do it too. And so I heard this later in the Ring cycle, and
You're
I
like,
was
hey, that's from that
Right.
movie.
Yeah. And actually, the same thing happened with Orff. I was working. I was actually working at Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
And it had like those in-cap listening stations.
Oh yeah.
And in one of them, they had Orff. And like somebody had left it playing, and I was going around turning them off when I heard that. And I rushed over to look at my computer to see what was actually being played, and immediately bought it.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to find it in years, and I'm scared to rebuy it because I know I will find it immediately.
Like the second you buy it, you're like, oh, it's right here in this drive.
Did I tell you the story about Cream of Clapton?
Okay.
Do you know this? It's the greatest hits album.
Yeah,
but it's
I know the album.
It's all of his early stuff.
Okay.
Like 60s and 70s stuff.
Yeah.
When he was better. I'm sorry, but
Pre-Armani period, right? Yeah.
but so I got it, and I absolutely adored this album.
Yeah.
And played the snot out of the album. Lost the album. Mm-hmm. Did not rebuy it for years.
Okay.
Because the second I rebought it, I was going to find it.
Yeah.
Didn't for years. I finally got sick of it. I had a gift card for Walmart. Mm-hmm. Found it there for about that same price.
Okay.
Bought it. 2 days later.
2 days.
2 days later.
That's when it knew when to show up.
Yeah.
It's like it could sense the presence of its replacement. So
Right.
Yeah.
And I found it in the case of a different CD.
Oh man.
That I had probably just stuck in there in the car.
Yeah.
All right. So anyways, Funeral March, Gotcha Damerung.
Let's do it.
So what I wanted to point out in this is just the really almost mystical quality of it, where he's making it hard for the casual listener to nail down the rhythm of it. It's very floaty. It just continuously builds to this climax, but kind of to the point where, we're talking about, being horizontal.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't stop there. He pulls it back a little bit, and then he pushes forward to a second higher climax.
Okay, gotcha.
To it. It's really neat. So anyways, this is the Funeral March.
There it is. I think Gotterdammerung translates into Twilight of the Gods.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I'm gonna find a better recording of it. Seriously annoying. This is my favorite piece.
Yeah. Come on, guys. Get it together. Get it together.
I'm recording a CD.
Yeah, right. What are these stories from?
Norse mythology.
It's all from the Eddas?
Yeah.
Not Germanic?
I mean, it kind of all floated around there. But it's like, Gotcha Damerung is, in Norse mythology, the proper term for the whole time period leading up to Ragnarok.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So, Odin and Wotan are the same?
I think so.
Really? Okay. That's cool. Wagner was extremely nationalist. So he was emphatic that this was a German story. Hitler's love of Wagner. Like Hitler loved Wagner, but I think it probably had more to do with fact that it was very German and very grandiose, you know. Instrumental section in the middle of an opera, like, which is vocally driven. Like, I mean, you'll have dance breaks periodically and things, but like, Houston Opera did it, Grand Opera did it recently, did the whole ring cycle recently, like the last 5-10 years. It'll come back.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But probably very slow.
Yeah. Yeah. There it is.
It's just, we're just holding the scene. It's
Yeah.
just- All right, pulling down the music some. Thanks for letting me know. It's coming down anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, so there we get, real Wagner and like the
Yeah.
way that he writes,
Yeah. So, I know that was self-indulgent, but I love that piece.
I don't mind.
That's-
No,
yeah.
I hate good music.
Right.
Boo.
So-
Down with music.
So yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff Wagner is writing toward the end of his life.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just immaculately woven together.
You're asking, when you hand somebody that assignment, you're saying, take the masterpiece that all humans in Western history have built up to, and I want you to create a work at that level.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break.
Yeah, no.
Give me a break.
So yeah, the second I found in the game that, it's like, oh, they start mentioning the Lost Wagner opera really early in the game.
Uh-huh.
All right. So,
Yeah.
and it's like, they're not going to do that, are they? And they keep going with it. And you're like, this isn't a MacGuffin. This is a major plot point.
Here it comes.
And then they start going into
it's gonna happen. They're
that-
going into the opera house.
right, and it's like, and then they start hinting that Ludwig II was a werewolf, and he called Wagner to him, and I'm like, they're gonna do this.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so then we get to that scene, and like the rest of the game, the production value is exceedingly good.
Yeah.
It still looks good, which is something that I can't really say about almost any full motion video game.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would say that, like, as one just final thought, I would say that it actually fits like earlier opera, like Italian opera, a little bit better than it does Wagnerian opera.
Right.
I mean, it's definitely within the genre
Right.
of opera. I mean, he's definitely in the ballpark for sure. But like, if you were gonna get picky about it, there's stuff in there that's more like, early Mozart than it is like Wagner, just because it's incredibly complicated to write. It's just amazingly complex.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I was looking at the timeline of Wagner, and it's like Götterdämmerung and Siegfried came out at the same time.
Really?
The other two were much earlier. I think it was kind of like a Stephen King thing where there was 10 years between the Dark Tower novels until he got to the end, and then all three of them came out at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it seemed like that, at least according to the timeline that I was looking at. And then like Parsifal came out like 6 years later.
Okay.
And Parsifal is not a short opera either.
Yeah.
And so he did 4 hours of music, libretto, costume design, stage design,
Lighting,
lighting.
makeup, designing the flyers, social media.
Right. Oh gosh, Wagner on Twitter would be a train wreck. It would be glorious though. I'd follow him.
It would sort of like like our president.
No, we're not going to. Last episode I went into. This is not a political show.
Sorry,
cut that out.
What would Wagner's Twitter handle be? Wotan is the best.
Oh my goodness.
I'm
Somebody needs
Siegfried.
to make that
I am
one.
the hero. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
No, you know what? Twitter would never go for Wagner. You want to know why? It's way too short. He needs 4 hours to say what he's got to say.
He'd be like once a day. He would string together like 137 tweets.
Oh man.
Got
a Victorian novel going on. It's like tweet one of 9,752. Yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, that pretty much wraps it up on Wagner. I think we've said everything we could possibly say about Richard Wagner.
Everything that we want to say tonight, at least.
So we really do appreciate you joining us. As a reminder, this, by the way, is the first. I don't know if I mentioned this. This is the first time we've recorded an episode of the Retro Zoo, not live on Twitch. We've done that before, but like with another person in the studio.
Oh, cool!
With dual cameras going.
I'm honored. Did it go okay? Were there any like horrible technical difficulties?
Besides the music being too loud through the stream.
Yeah, but somebody was able to hear it and tell us. So it's a success.
We'll take it.
Yeah,
So
right.
appreciate y'all hanging with us. Those who joined us live, those who are joining us on podcast. Thank you so much. We do really appreciate you downloading us every week. As a reminder, we're kind of trying to move all of our announcements and chats about retro gaming and such over to our Discord server, and so the link to that will be in the show notes. We really do hope that you will join us there. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next week.
I'm giving the thumbs up. I'm giving the thumbs up. I need the audio podcast listeners to know that both my thumbs are up right now.
Kircher, thanks so much for joining us, man. Actually, let's turn the red light off to notate that we are no longer recording.
Oh yeah.
So
can we say dirty words now?
You can say dirt. No,
poop, fart.
We're still on Twitch.
Nerds.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. I think you joined us kind of late. So we have weekly retros gaming podcast. It comes out on Fridays. Not this week though.
Okay.
Because I'm taking a break.
That's all right.
So this is gonna come out next week.
Cool.
But so we were talking about the lost opera, the lost Wagner opera in the game Gabriel Knight: The Beast Within, which I don't know if you played, but it's a fun game. So, but yeah, that just gave us an excuse to talk about Wagner.
That's right.
Wagner's awesome. Wagner's so awesome. I'm such a Wagner nerd.
We should call him. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
So cool. All right, so we're gonna take off, and thanks again for joining us. And
can I play Beverly Hills Cop one more time?
Go for it. Let's.
can't play the rest. There it is.
I want to make sure that your students see this. How many times are you going to miss that note?
Give me a drum machine. I can't do it. It's too
You're
much.
doing great. I loved it.
I can't do it. It's too much thought. It's too much thought at one time.
Oh gosh. All right. Thanks so much for joining.
Cheers, everybody.
Appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.